Well, as you of course know by now, it's become an old tradition, this Texas OU football weekend. The football teams come in from Austin and from Norman. They go to their hotels and they think good thoughts until the game tomorrow. Everybody else comes downtown, notably here to the corner of Commerce Street and Akins Street, right in the middle of downtown Dallas, and everybody has a whale of a good time and wakes up with a furry tongue in the morning. There are several ways of looking at Texas OU weekend. Merchants downtown, where the pregame celebration takes place, act as though a hurricane is about to hit the city. And in a way, it is. Boards go over windows, bars over doors. And speaking of bars, this will be the first year for the celebration that liquor by the drink will have been legal. Police don't quite know what to do about this new development. They say they don't have enough experience with liquor by the drink to forecast whether there will be more or fewer drinkers this year. Assistant Police Chief William Fulgham says there were 406 celebrants arrested last year, and most of those were for liquor violations, one kind or another. Police, including reserves, the Vice Squad, and the Department of Public Safety, will be cracking down especially on liquor violations this year. Another factor is the weather. It hasn't rained on a Texas OU weekend for years, but forecasters say there is an even chance tonight. If it does, crowd control will be a lot easier than it has been in the past. In fact, Chief Fulgham says the police are praying for a little bit of rain. It keeps the folks off the sidewalks. One of the strangest things about Texas OU weekends, especially in view of the reputation that the students have, is the knowledge that most of the people arrested are not from either Austin or Norman. The majority are Dallasites who apparently seize on the celebration as the chance to go out, have a little fun, and blame it on those wild college kids. More prudent folk may stay home by the fireplace tonight. This is Phil Reynolds, Channel 8 News on the Move at Commerce and Akins Streets in downtown Dallas.
Weather-wise, there's not a cloud in the sky over the Capitol building here in Austin, but philosophically, there's a large dark cloud hanging over that Capitol building because of the so-called Great Texas Stock Scandal. The center of controversy from that scandal has turned out to be House Speaker Gus Mutscher, because he has so far refused to step down from his position as requested by so many members of the House and others throughout the state. Of course, the Speaker doesn't have to. The law says he's innocent until proven guilty, and he can stay in that position until proven guilty, so it's his choice. So looking at it from his point of view, why should he step down? If he steps down now, he's dead, because he would never regain that speakership, even if he is acquitted. On the other hand, by staying in the position now, if he is acquitted, he would have a chance to be Speaker of the House in the next session of the Texas legislature. I said a chance. Let's look at it from another point of view. What does he gain by staying in the position now? He continues to have access to a sizable staff, statewide telephone lines, offices here in the Capitol building, and other such things, which can be vital to a person who's having to put on a major battle for his political life. There's been a lot of talk about the possibility of a special session of the legislature now. If that should happen, the first order of business would be election of a new Speaker of the House. So, a special session of the legislature now is the last thing that Speaker Mutscher wants, with the exception, of course, of acquittal in his trial. So it looks like that dark cloud, philosophically, is going to remain over the Capitol building here in Austin for some months to come. The biggest danger in that is we just could get used to it being there. This is Austin McDonald, Channel 8 News on the Move at the State Capitol in Austin.
Doug, you're a native of South Africa. How in the world did you ever get interested in a game like ice hockey?
My twin brother was over there 3 years ago playing hockey, and they wanted more Canadians, so then I went over there. Then I went back the last 2 summers, and I liked it so much I immigrated there. I'm staying there.
So you're now a native of South Africa. Well, where were you born?
Canada, South Saskatchewan.
How is hockey accepted in South Africa?
Pretty well. They've had a few problems, with contracts, but there's a lot of European players. It's not rough like pro hockey, but it's high scoring and good passing. Europeans like to pass. But they don't play the rough hockey that the Canadians do.
Have you played in this league before?
No.
What do you think about this league compared to the league that you played in last year? Was it the International or Eastern League?
Eastern.
Syracuse.
This is more faster, competitive hockey. The Eastern League's pretty good hockey. It's rough. They got a lot of, usually every team has a big tough guy, but this league's a lot faster skating. You don't just have guys running around.
A federal grand jury in Dallas has returned 26 indictments today. However, only one of those in connection with that National Bankers Life stock scandal. 3 men were named in a single indictment, which consists of 4 counts. Named were John Osorio, the former president of National Bankers Life and a trustee of that company's pension plan. He was also a director of Dallas Bank and Trust. Also named Donald Akins, an officer of Dallas Bank and Trust and a vice president in National Bankers Life. Also named was Sam Stock, a former employee and officer of National Bankers Life and a trustee for that pension plan. The indictment charges specifically count 1, John Osorio, Sam Stock, and Donald Akins with conspiracy to embezzle from that pension fund of NBL and to misapply the funds of Dallas Bank and Trust. The second count of the indictment charges John Osorio and Sam Stock for embezzlement of $28,000 from the NBL pension fund. The same 2 men are named in the third count of the indictment, this time for embezzling $56,000 from the NBL pension fund. Sam Stock alone is named in the fourth count, this for filing a false annual report for the pension plan. Warrants for these 3 men have been issued by the U.S. Attorney's Office. However, U.S. attorneys tell us that they feel sure that attorneys for the defendants will surrender them. From the Federal Building in downtown Dallas, this is Jim Mitchell, Channel 8 News on the Move.
Coach, what type of a game do you feel it'll be Saturday? A low-scoring game or a high-scoring game?
Well, Jerry, I really don't know. It's hard to predict those things. There's so many factors that take place. Both teams have had quite a bit of success moving the football so far this season. Texas's defensive team has had considerably more success on defense than what ours has. I think both of us have been doing a good job in the kicking game. So, golly, I don't know. It's hard to predict those things. I really think it would have to be a low-scoring game for us to have a chance. I think defensively, the pressure is really on our defense to hold them. We have two starting players, Darrell Moore, defensive tackle, that has not been able to practice so far this week. I'm hoping that he will get into practice and be able to play in the ball game this week. And Joe Wiley, our starting left halfback, has not been able to practice yet this week and has quite a severe ankle sprain. And whether or not he'll be able to play, I think only time will tell us that. But we really are hard hit with injuries. I think everyone knows the quality football player that Eddie Phillips is, and we don't have his services. Jim Moore is an outstanding talent. It looks like he's lost, might even be lost for the season. He's definitely lost for this contest. Stan Malden, who's an outstanding defensive player, is not ready to play. He will not be in the Oklahoma game. David Arledge is already lost for the season.
Coach Royal says that even though the Longhorns have had the wishbone in operation longer than the Sooners, your unit, your first-string unit, has had more experience than his starters. Do you think this is an advantage in the game?
Well, I don't necessarily think it's an advantage for us because his team is as knowledgeable about the wishbone offense as any team in the country. Our team right now has 11 games under their belt in this system, and so we're more confident that we know how to execute the offense than what we were, a while back. But their coaching staff and their squad has been exposed to the wishbone offense now for several years. I honestly believe this. I believe that the Oklahoma football team of this year is the best Oklahoma team that we've seen in my 15 years at the University of Texas. They've got phenomenal speed at their halfback slots when they pitch the ball out on their wide wishbone pitches. And defensively, they're strong, they're aggressive, they're active, and they're well coordinated. I'd say that all in all phases of the game, you think about Oklahoma and we start trying to find a weakness. We try to find a weakness in the kicking game. We try to find a weakness, maybe they don't kick off well, or maybe they don't cover punts well. But all phases of the game, they're at least good. In some phases of the game, they're absolutely superb.
I don't know. I'll be quite honest with you. Like I say, Dallas is a big league city, and I couldn't think of a better place for any young ball player to play. But I'm 35 now, and I've played 12 and a half years in the big leagues. I don't know just exactly what I'm going to do. It's late in the year. Your patience is short. You don't want to say something you're going to be sorry for later. I'm going to go home, take a good hard look at it, and see what happens. I really don't know right this moment what I'm going to do.
I think I saw where Bob Short called you a tough negotiator and indicated that your reluctance to go was the first salvo in contract negotiations.
No, that's completely untrue. He may gather that from my thinking, but that's not entirely true. I've made my money here, and there's not too much more I can make. I don't think. I mean, I don't know how much longer I've got to play. I feel I've got another 3 or 4 years to go, but you never know. I certainly haven't had the kind of year that I thought I was going to have or that I wanted to have, but at the same time, I think the year I've had has been respectable. No, that's not true. That's what he might think, only because he is a shrewd, sharp businessman. But wherever I go, I plan on making some money.
Judge Charles J. Murray of the 17th District Court called the meeting today of his fellow district judges to discuss possible solutions to what has degenerated into a serious dilemma in Tarrant County. It seems that with law and order at the top rung of every political ladder in the country, with the citizenry crying out for swifter and surer police and court justice, the citizens of Tarrant County seem to be abdicating in droves from their responsibility to act as jurors. Judge Walter E. Jordan is among those most deeply upset by it.
The real problem, and the problem that necessitated the meeting of the judges this afternoon, is the failure of a good many of the jurors recently to show up when summoned for jury service. As I mentioned, we wound up with 255 out of 550 on Monday of this week, and less than 100 out of 250 summoned for Tuesday. That's not sufficient. Obviously, a lot of people are not answering the jury summons, and of course they are required under the law to answer the jury summons. They're subject to fine if they do not, unless they are excused by the judge. Now, these numbers that we don't have missed this week are people who are not excused and who were summoned and should have appeared.
I polled the major cities of the state by telephone quickly this morning. In Austin, they don't have the problem of jurors not showing up, but in Austin, the volume through the courts is so low that they only have jury weeks 27 weeks out of the year. In Houston, they said the courts grind on 12 months out of every year, and the jurors always show up. When I posed the problem to a judge in San Antonio this morning, he said, "You're kidding. You mean the jurors just don't show up?" I said, "Yes, sir, that's correct." He said, "Well, I'd send out the sheriff and put them in jail." Well, you can't put them in jail under the law, but you can fine them.
Beginning next week, those jurors who are summoned and who do not appear will be served with a show cause notice by the sheriff and will be fined $50 if they do not appear and if they have not been excused by the judge having the jury for the week. In other words, by the judge who summoned them.
As I told you when I was reporting on a specific murder case a couple of weeks ago, the court system in Tarrant County is getting so choked up that theoretically, at least, it is going to be possible in a year or two, with only one continuance a year, for a man even perhaps accused of murder to never come to trial. Hopefully that situation will not develop, but if it should, a portion of it would obviously be the fault of those people called to jury duty who didn't show up. Jerry Taft, Channel 8 News on the Move at the courthouse in Fort Worth.
I think we'd almost have to go to the city itself. Dallas is and has been traditionally a conservative city, and I think we're asking now that the city as a whole open up a little bit and actually face up to some of the problems that we're having here. Heretofore, I don't think we've done this. I do think it's time that we admit that we do have problems here and work on a solution that would make things really better here for everybody.
The takeover of the Clinical Research Center by the Bureau of Prisons was announced last January, with the transfer to take place in August. Since then, there has been a battle in Washington to keep the research center open under the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. There were several delays, but an announcement this morning released by the HEW completed the transfer and gives a maximum of 24 hours to move 93 drug addicts off the premises, preferably before midnight tonight. Congressman Jim Wright of Fort Worth said today that this will mean the addicts will be put back on the streets, and he blasted HEW Director Elliot Richardson for that decision.
But I think this is the most high-handed, the most arbitrary action on the part of an administrative agency that I've ever heard of, utterly disregarding the pending action in Congress and trying to present us with a fait accompli. Today I have wired Secretary Elliot Richardson of the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare and very urgently called to his attention the fact that Congress has been considering this legislation, that the House has acted affirmatively on this legislation, and that I think it is utterly dictatorial, inconsiderate, and unprecedented for the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, in spite of the congressional decisions, to go ahead and close it before we have an opportunity to complete action on that bill.
The patients began leaving the center this afternoon. None of them have received the full 6 months treatment program required. Congressman Wright said it just doesn't make sense that the administration is asking Congress to put up $115 million to build new facilities to treat drug addicts, and yet they're closing one of only 2 they presently have. The Bureau of Prisons will take full control of this complex tomorrow. Jim Green, Channel 8 News on the Move, Fort Worth.
We expect the Air Force Academy to play an inspired game because they were defeated in the last couple of minutes last week by the number 9 team in the nation, Penn State, 16-14. They had the ball game won, and since this is homecoming at the Air Force Academy, I would imagine that the Air Force will play inspirational football.
Would your offense combine the eye and the wishbone, the flying wishbone, this Saturday also?
We're certainly going to try. We have hopes that our experience this past week with the I formation will blend in with the wishbone, and depending upon the Air Force Academy defense will dictate the formation we actually concentrate with, but we are prepared to play both formations.
Are all of the Mustangs healthy for tomorrow?
I think they will be by game time. We have a couple that haven't worked out this week, but we've held them out purposely in order that they could recover, and their injuries have been muscle pulled, so I think everyone will be all right.